Hey, Awesomes. Happy Monday to you. I just wanted to start the week off, at least the first video I'm going to cut, might not be the first one that you watch, and talk about the Week 9 discussion post. I thoroughly enjoyed reading them this weekend. You guys really engaged, not only in discussion amongst each other, but brought up excellent points, stuff that we've read this semester so far. Obviously things that you've watched, the projects that you have completed thus far, and some of you even discussed about talked about Project 3 upcoming and how that kind of perhaps relates to everything with which you've been presented this semester. So I want to kind of look at a few quotes here and go over a few things. So kind of doing this in two segments. This here kind of start off. I like a lot of you in this class here especially really honed in on the importance of audience. I was really happy to see that. Biggest takeaway I have obtained from taking this technical communication course is tailoring your writing to your audience. All the projects I completed in this course thus far targeted different audiences. I learned how to properly write to a specific audience, and what I find very interesting about that is that some of the posts even talked about how the imagining an audience beyond the instructor, right? I.e., moi, right? Me. While I'm obviously grading your papers, that's one thing that's very challenging and difficult, even for me, to try to present projects and how to help you imagine and understand an audience that is beyond me. And that's where Project 3, which we'll talk about in a second, is going to really kind of help us try to maybe put all these things together. All right, so this third one here, I like this one too. I know now about active white spaces and their importance to a document like the resume, right? Also, the idea of hierarchy while writing documents is another idea I've never considered. I always just use Times New Roman. I would just bold the different headings without thinking what impact altering the headings would have on the image of the whole document, right? And we might think about how that image, a lot of times we talk about technical communication, beyond writing is the presentation of that writing, right? Where we, as Kramer and Bernhardt, and many of you referenced Kramer and Bernhardt on your post this last week concerning how they had us think about being in control of the document, right? And how we might help guide our audience or our reader very specifically and how we want them to read it. What kind of information do we want to make sure jumps out? And what kind of additional information do we then want to provide underneath some of those headings? So, well done. Here's some more on the audience. I too have really benefited from the writing to a specific audience. Recently I found a job that I wanted to apply to. When I applied, I specifically directed my cover letter and resume towards the specific hiring manager and the specific company that I was applying to. I eventually heard back from the company and they scheduled me for an interview this upcoming week. I believe targeting the audience in my cover letter and my resume really was a big aid in me landing an interview with the company. Well, congratulations to you. I'm glad there was some benefit there, and I think that that does speak to the fact that while we think about writing these documents, we obviously think about the content, right? And so what I read a lot in the student's post here is the fact that this targeting of that particular audience and then responding to that particular job post by specifically thinking about either the keywords, right? Presenting the resume, highlighting some of those keywords and how we put those on the document, right? How we present, what's the image of that document. And then when we write the cover letter, we expand more on those things as we learned in Project 1A, and how we can then take those things and present them and then allow the person to who's reading it, the audience, to then be able to read it efficiently, right? Maybe we want to pass the quadrant test or the 20-second test, or maybe it's being scanned, right? We're trying to take all these things into consideration. So well done, congratulations. And then here we're talking about, all in all, and putting everything together, Project 3 helps integrate many aspects we have learned and display interaction with the community to make an argument and support it, right? So we're talking about research in Project 3, right? So we're going to take these elements as they discuss here, right? Primary research, secondary research, organizing a schedule and objective with a purpose, experience section, etc. Teach many lessons, right? So all these things we're putting together, right? Project 3 is going to kind of be this culmination, as many of you kind of alluded to in your post this past week. And I like here how someone picked up some things in Markel, right? Based on the readings, writings, and watching, I've learned that to write a form of technical communication, it takes mastering 4 skills, as Markell said, right? Listening, speaking, reading, and writing. It takes understanding information and listening to what others are trying to express as well. And I think that that's a really, really interesting point too, right? When you think about this. So we as technical writers, right, or in the technical writing portion of whatever your future job might be, right, you might have to take in a bunch of information, right, maybe from disparate areas or avenues of either your department or your company or different offices, right, or different aspects of the machine, right, that is the space in which you work. So you have to listen to those ideas to incorporate a lot of those in making this technical communication, right? So well done. If I had all the time in the world, I would read every single post, because I thought all of your posts were just amazing. So I do want to address a few questions here real quick. But how much does formatting the documents make on the employer? At what point does the qualifications take over the documents, or is writing the documents more important? This is something that I'd like to know as well. I think that's a really great question. It's tough for us to think about too, right, in many aspects. But I think here's how it might help you think about that, right? I'm not sure that there's necessarily a right or necessarily a wrong answer to this. But think about the formatting is your kind of entry point to kind of get into the first round, so to speak, right? In your formatting of your documents, especially to an employer, right? A lot of times the actual person, maybe the decision maker, at least what they tell us, and in the trades, if you will, tells us a lot of times the formatting makes the most sense so that the person can get through the information quickly, right? We want to guide the reader through that document, specifically the resume, and then we want the cover letter kind of be targeted to expand on those specific type of keywords, key values, or qualifications which they're looking for. And I think the point where the qualifications take over the document are more when you kind of get to the person who then gets into more of the meat, right? But then at the same time, while they're reading it, we want to be able to help guide them through it as well, because now I don't think one necessarily is more important than the other. I think we're really trying to make both equally important, right? So that the qualifications that are there, we want the qualifications to be able then to stand out so they can see what your qualifications are, I think, more quickly, if that makes sense. How much attention do you think employers look at in your writing style? Or do you think your qualifications are more important than how you present yourself in a resume or cover letter? Okay, I think the same student put these two. One was in a response to one, and then one was a direct question. I think my answer would still be the same. I think your writing style does matter. I don't think that your qualifications are more important. I think your qualifications matched or along with how you present yourself further support the qualifications that you have. So if you put on their qualifications, educated in this, experience in this, great technical communicator, right, or good communicator, right, because what is it that we read also in Markell that 2 or 3 of the top types of qualifications or characteristics and things like that that employers are looking for have a lot to do with communication. So I think this gives you an opportunity to kind of do both. You're demonstrating, right, as you're presenting your writing, as you're presenting the way that you would put together a technical document, i.e. these 2 documents, you're kind of showing now that you can do that instead of just merely saying it alone, if that makes sense. I love these questions. Should technical communication be mandatory for any bachelors or only ones in a technical field? An interesting aspect I've thought about in this class should be taught at lower levels in college. On one hand, it prepares students for future essays, writing, deliveries, schooling career. On the other hand, our topics learned in this class to advance for a younger audience. These kind of 2 questions are very interesting, and obviously I think I would argue that technical communications ought to be mandatory for any bachelor's degree. I think that has a lot to do with the way that future communications, and we think about what entails technical communication. As much media as we're using today to communicate, email, texting, I would say that Twitter, Facebook posts, and the way that information is presented, right? We talk about the image of the technical document. Disseminating just information in general is all technical communication. So I think that as far as that one-to-one correlation of how we might use that out in the quote-unquote real world, then I would definitely argue for that. And this is kind of the follow-up question there. In lower levels than in college, I think there definitely could be definitely a space for perhaps entry-level type of technical writing. Are there careers for technical writers? Yes, there are. What are they called? The actual career called? Well, I believe that our English department here is in the process of putting together a technical writer, technical communications type of major. If you go on the market to look for a job like this, a lot of times it will be technical writer, technical communicator. A lot of times it will be professional writer, business development, things of that nature. Generally, what they're called. How is technical communication going to help further your career? Just being able to communicate effectively, being able to communicate positively, and mastering those skills, right, of speaking, listening, reading, writing, all the things that kind of come in. And when you can show those, demonstrate those, that you can handle all those aspects and you understand those, combining with your audience and your purpose, definitely make you stand out. Does technical communication help you become a better writer? Yes, thinking especially if you're, as many of you picked up on this week, audience and purpose, audience and purpose, audience and purpose. And a lot of times when it comes to writing, someone will sit down to write something and they're writing just singularly, right in here in their own brain, as opposed to thinking about how this might be received, right? How is this going to be taken up? How is this going to be interpreted? Okay, those are key things that will help you just be a better writer in general. One thing I've not learned as much from, I still have questions about, including some forms of technical communication, such as emails, letters, memos. They're addressed to a specific person. They're straightforward. Unsure how to address and conclude documents. Yeah, this can always be challenging if you don't know to whom it may concern. Dear sir, madam, a lot of times, right, if you know that you're sending out a memo perhaps to a committee, sometimes the committee name is always good. As far as signing off, right, generally, you know, I think it's if you start off with dear so-and-so, sincerely, generally most accepted convention. Of course, there's also, if it's levels of formality, if it's maybe less formal, you might just, you might end with best regards, something like that. If you do not know their name or some more ambiguous group of people that you're addressing it to, I would say, you know, that's when we have to think about, try to find out who that audience is if it's not someone specific, maybe a group of people. So we might say if it's like the cover letter might be, you know, your hiring department, your hiring manager, or something of that nature. And then you know, if you try to do as much as you possibly can, maybe there's a specific name for that area at that particular company that you might be able to find out through their website or maybe through a search or something like that to try to find that out. But I think you'd be okay if you can find out how they do it at their particular company, because a lot of times it's going to be genre specific, which we're going to read about this week. Okay, all right. That was from one class there. I'll be back with another video. I'd like to address some other questions from another class, and I'm just going to try to keep this short, but I apologize. All right, guys. I'll talk to you very, very soon. Thanks for watching. Bye. Good job, too. Excellent, excellent. I really appreciate it. Bye.